681. Offices in Baton Rouge. Now, The Hunt Palmer Show. You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Means we're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Hope your work week is off to a good start. We're fired up. You're hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Lots and lots to get to. Cat Terrell in 15 minutes. Saints lose in their second preseason contest last night. So we'll chat with her about that coming up. In hour number 2, Denton Day is going to jump aboard. He's Sirius XM, talks all things National College Football. We'll talk some National College Football with Denton, but he's also a big Washington Commanders fan. They've got a new quarterback. He's played pretty well in the preseason, so we'll talk with Denton about that as well. LSU was on the practice field yesterday. We'll hear a little bit from Brian Kelly. I've got takes on the Saints as well. But I do want to start back with your trip up to Chicago. I mean, how was it? The Cubs got a dub, which was excellent news.
Yeah, they actually won the series, won Friday and Saturday. Unfortunately, lost Sunday, but it was pretty good. We had a little bit of weather issues, not only with the baseball game, which had 2 weather delays, which was not great, but it was okay.
Those weather delays can get a little expensive in a major league ballpark. There's not a lot of bargain shopping you can do there, whether it's to give memorabilia or beverages or food.
Yeah,
and that's really all you can do if it's a weather delay.
Well, and we were in the bleachers and we ended up just sitting. We ended up just staying there during the delay because it wasn't raining that hard. And when I tried to walk out to the concourse, and it was just full of people just standing there waiting for the weather delay to end. So I even if I wanted to get something, I'm like, I'm not going to try to wade through this crowd of people, But regardless, it was still awesome. The weather was nice temperature wise. Cloudy. It rained a few times over the weekend, but other than that, it was great. Had some good food. Walked around just the downtown area down by the lake and everything. So it was great, man. We had a good time, and we'll have to definitely be going back again soon. Just love that trip. It's so easy. I mean, it's like a 2-hour flight. Our flight there was only like an hour 45, and our flight back was like an hour and a half. It was even shorter than it usually is. So it's such an easy trip to do.
It's awesome. It's an easy trip, easy flight. It's always direct there out of New Orleans.
Yep.
Get there. And I mean, I'm bummed that y'all had some bad weather, but there's no better spot in the summer than Little Wrigley Field.
Yeah,
actually.
it was still even
my
though
spot was good. I was on the beach. That's good, but it's not as good as Wrigley.
Yeah, even with the weather, man, it was still awesome. Like the bleachers are just the best way to take the game in. It was funny because
I would push back on that.
Okay, well, for me at least, the games that I've been to, it's been awesome. I texted you. I said, like, when it started raining, all the people in the first and third base line cleared out immediately as soon as it starts raining. There's nobody in the seats, and you look across the entire left and right field sections, and everybody's just sitting there like having a good time and laughing, and nobody. I think it's definitely the more truer fans are in the bleachers, in my opinion.
It's just a different vibe. It's very much like kind of a party energy, just people kind of hanging out. I would suggest that like 30% of the people in the bleachers aren't even Cubs fans. They're just there because there's a baseball game and it's an awesome place to probably have one too many cold pops. So, that's awesome.
They were unfortunately, the security guys were disrupting our ability to create the cup snakes. Every time.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, unfortunately, we had a pretty solid one going, and we noticed that right field was their snake was really long, and they were antagonizing us in left field about it. And so we had to really step our game up, and we got it going pretty solidly, almost from the first row all the way to the top. But the security guys came in and messed it all up. So it's
I don't know why they have to do that.
I don't either, because I don't understand what kind of safety hazard. It's just a bunch of plastic cups. Yeah. It's not like if you drop it, it's going to hurt someone. So I really don't know.
I guess it could be like annoying if you're trying to watch the game and this huge cup like came and like I don't
but
just maybe it's courteous, but it seems like a lot of people out there in the mood to make cup snakes anyway. So it's not hurting anybody. It's not exactly the premium seating right behind home plate. So
no,
I'm thrilled you enjoyed yourself. We had a good weekend over at the beach as well, and fired up to be back here. Let's talk a little LSU football before we get to the Saints. There was a point a couple of months ago where there was a prevailing feeling amongst maybe a vocal minority on LSU Twitter, on the message boards. I'm on 3. You got your Tiger droppings, folks. You got the Twitterverse and all that kind of stuff. And there was just a feeling like this is not going well in terms of defensive back recruiting. Like, they're not getting it done the way that LSU expects to do that. You had a bad secondary last year. You have question marks in your secondary this year. The only way to remedy that is to go get players, whether it's in the transfer portal or in the high school recruiting ranks. And you're kind of looking around and you're looking at this class, and they got the number 1 quarterback in the country, and they got the number 1 running back in the country, and they continue to recruit offensive linemen exceptionally well, and you've got a couple of edge rushers, and you're going to have your wide receivers, but where are the DBs? And there were a lot of people going, well, Corey Raymond didn't do a good job recruiting at the end of his first tenure at LSU, and he didn't do a great job of recruiting at Florida, and why would you think he's going to do a great job of recruiting? And my point during all of this situation was, can we just wait until there's actually a situation before we have this visceral reaction? Can we just tap the brakes a second and let things play out? If signing day comes and goes and they don't sign anybody, or they sign a couple of 2-stars that are, being recruited by nickels, then we'll go nuts. We'll lose our minds over that. But let's just let the cycle play out. And then DJ Pickett commits to LSU. And you think, well, that's more like it. That's like Stingley. That's like Ricks. That's like Kevin Tolliver when he was being recruited. That's like Tre'Davious White and Jamal Adams. Like, that's the type of player that we're used to. That's a good start. Well, Jabari Antoine's out of the boat now. He can't get from your hometown. That's a guy in New Iberia right down the road. Really screwed this up. Well, hold on. That story's not over yet. And then you get great news over the weekend as Cade Phillips flips his commitment from Texas to LSU about 2 months after he had pledged to the Longhorns. Phillips is a consensus 4-star cornerback, hails from the state of Texas over in Missouri City near Houston, 6'1", 185 pounds, good frame, high-level offers, Texas, as we mentioned, Texas A&M. And now you pair Cade Phillips with DJ Pickett, and you look at it and you go, that is what LSU defensive back recruiting is supposed to look like. That's what we're accustomed to. That's DBU. That's all it takes is a couple of cycles of going in there and making things happen. And we know that signing day is not tomorrow. There's no ink dry on the paper, but you've got 2 very, very high-level commitments. And I would suggest, although I don't know Jabari Antoine, I don't have any sources on this situation. I lean on the folks that do that for a living. The Shea Dixons, the Billy Embodies, the Sonny Ships, those folks, they handle that. But I would suggest that Jabari Antoine recruiting period is not over. Either way, you've got 2 in the boat that you feel really, really good about. And you could potentially add another one. And that is the story here. We're just so quick to jump out there and have the hottest take or express the most emotion when you got to pump the brakes every once in a while. And when I saw that news break over the weekend, I went, that's about right. Just let these guys go. I promise you, Corey Raymond did not forget how to recruit student athletes. I promise you, Corey Raymond did not forget how to teach backpedaling, flipping your hips. He did not lose the ability to evaluate high-level college football players. And as long as he's here at LSU as a defensive backs coach, cornerbacks coach, I expect them to be in a lot of battles like this, and I expect them to win their fair share of them. And I would suggest that LSU is going to be back to the level of defensive back play that we're accustomed to pretty quickly. You can't quite do it overnight, but you can do it quickly. We've seen Brad Davis do it with the offensive line. You're going to see Bo Davis do it on the defensive line. You're going to see Corey Raymond do it in the defensive backfield. Blake Baker's a heck of a recruiter. He's got linebackers. I don't have any issue with the way they're recruiting cornerback, wide receivers at the minute. I don't have any problem with the level of running back talent they're bringing in. And oh, by the way, the quarterbacks look pretty good too. This staff is really, really good. It's the best staff Brian Kelly's had in his 3 years here, and I think by a sizable margin. You could push back on that because you lose Mike Denbrock, and now you replace him with Joe Sloan, who hasn't done this as much. But the fact is that, like, from a recruiting standpoint, this is an elite coaching staff. And they're putting together an elite class right now that's ranked in the top 3 in the country by On3 and 24/7. You've got the number 1 corner in the country. You've got the number 1 running back in the country. You got the number 1 quarterback in the country, and you've got the number 1 interior offensive lineman in the country. It's really, really strong. And this is the blueprint that Brian Kelly has laid out. He wants to go get elite-level high school players and develop them for 3 to 4 years. They don't have as quick an impact when they get to campus as the folks that Lane Kiffin's bringing in over there at Oxford. But it's a longer and a more sustainable impact. And I think that's what you're seeing. This is a big, big get for LSU, high-level player. And now, like, kind of the one position that you had some question marks about with this class 2 months ago is a perceived strength now. DJ Pickett is one of the best players in this class. Might end up being the best player in this class. And Cade Phillips is a great compliment to him at that position. Big, big get for Corey Raymond. Big, big get for LSU. Cade Phillips flips from Texas to LSU over the weekend. If you want to read a little bit about that, you can over at louisianasports.net. Back on Thursday of last week, we launched the website, really kind of started amping things up on Saturday, had some great coverage of the Saints preseason game last night. There is full content on the site right now if you want to go check it out. Harlem Berry, speaking of recruiting, was on with Matt Moscona last week, and we transcribed that audio, and it's there in print form as our top story. Got a station survey piece up there right now that talks about the most indispensable player on LSU's roster, polled basically the entire station and took their answers. I've got an in-depth chart series that's up, kind of going deep into every position on LSU's roster. Chris Marlar's got some great SEC content, and if you want to read about the Saints preseason game last night, you can read about all of it from start to finish with Ross Jackson's coverage over at louisianasports.net. It is 100% free. There is not a single paywall anywhere to be seen on louisianasports.net, and we will certainly keep it that way. So if you're looking for LSU content, looking for Saints content, looking for SEC content, it is all there at louisianasports.net. We appreciate y'all for going along on this journey with us. Go ahead and bookmark the site and just visit it periodically. I just put that Harlem Berry piece up right before we went on the air, so I'm fired up about all of that. Take a time out when we come back. Kat Terrell covers New Orleans Saints for ESPN. What did she see in her time out in California and in the preseason game last night against San Francisco? That's all coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Visit LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino this summer for exciting live sports action. Got the biggest screens around, and ESPN Bet is live in Louisiana. Plus, Pin Play Rewards members can win up to $500 in pin cash every single week with their Cover 5 promotion. You're going to want to get into this as football is right around the corner. Cover 5 is a really, really fun way to play, and you can win $500 every single week. Just go to pinplaysports.com/cover5 today and register for your chance to play and win. If you're not a member, you can get the Pin Play app today. LeBear's Baton Rouge Casino, your live sports headquarters. Bring your crew for all the action. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 877-770-STOP.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered.
Charles Hannegriff, join us for the Tuesday edition of Live at Lunch from Mike Anderson Seafood, Wesley at Nicholson. Andy Isco joins us from Las Vegas, and we do first class, second class, no class. Live at Lunch from Mike Anderson's 11 a.m. Tuesday on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Shout out to Trey Beal and the folks at Gulf Coast Office Products. Always good enough to bring you our Monday shows each and every week. For your printing, scanning, copying needs, it's the folks at Gulf Coast Office Products. Check them out online, gcopnet.com. It's gcopnet.com. Saints were on the field yesterday in Santa Clara, taking on the San Francisco 49ers. 16-10 was the final. San Francisco gets out with a win. Some injuries here and there. A lot of Jake Haener, a lot of Spencer Rattler after Derek Carr played a couple of series. So we'll dive into what we saw a little bit later, but we wanted to get Kat Terrell, ESPN reporter for the New Orleans Saints, to come on and give her thoughts first. Kat, thanks so much for the time. How are you? Oh, we don't have Kat yet. We're still waiting because we have Echo. Is that about right? Phone line's giving a little bit of trouble there, but we'll link up with Kat here in a second. Derek Carr, 7 of 9 in the game. Just one kind of bad miss that he made, and then he gave way to Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler. And quite frankly, those guys kind of looked like inexperienced quarterbacks. Some indecision, holding the ball a little bit too long, result in a turnover. It didn't look as good for those two guys as it did potentially in the opener. Again, I don't think that you're talking about a hugely significant storyline for the Saints season this year. We're talking about a backup quarterback. If Derek Carr goes down for 2 months, the Saints are in huge trouble. That just is what it is. The Saints are not in a position like they were with Teddy Bridgewater as the backup a few years ago. Really even Jameis Winston. I mean, although he turns the ball over a lot, those guys can come in and can function at offense at this level pretty routinely. If not spectacularly, they could get it done. And you could hold the line for a month or so. The Saints are not in that position. The backup quarterback situation is only relevant to me in terms of could they potentially be a starter down the road. This is not a 2024 Saints season storyline to me. It's not, because Derek Carr is the quarterback, and if he's not, you're in big trouble. But you're just kind of waiting to see maybe if Jay Kaner or Spencer Rattler can find a little bit of a lightning in a bottle, and you just didn't see that last night. Jay Kaner was 7 of 13 for 76 yards. Spencer Rattler was 4 of 8 for 27 yards, took a couple of sacks. It was unspectacular in my estimation. I did think that you saw some good things in the running game. I thought Jordan Mims ran the ball hard. I thought Taysom looked good on that touchdown run as well on the offensive side. Jamal Williams got out there and averaged 6 yards a carry. So I thought there were some good things there. But the Saints aren't showing a ton offensively in these games, and Derek Carr was pretty clear about that on the broadcast. We have linked up with Kat Terrell, ESPN Saints reporter, who joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Kat, thanks for the time. How are you?
I'm doing great. Back at home after 26 days, so pretty happy to be back in New Orleans.
How's the humidity?
Well, I really haven't left my house much. Every time I go out, a part of me dies on the inside a little bit, so we're working back to that.
All right, let's talk a little bit of football. Can you take much of anything from the Saints offense, considering how vanilla they're telling us they're calling this?
I don't know. I was pretty concerned that there was 4 straight drives dating back to last week that ended in punts. I mean, I was making a joke online that the first team needed to be sent back out there until they actually did something. And obviously they responded, because they read my Twitter,
sure.
With that 16-play drive. And that was a good drive. I thought that there were some good things. The protection held up. The run game was a little bit better. But, yeah, I mean, I still have reservations about this offense, but I think a lot of those reservations come with the question about the offensive line.
Yeah, let's stick to offensive line. I mean, what is your main takeaway from camp and then a couple of preseason games with this group?
I feel like I say this a lot, but I feel that the team is kind of still largely in the same place with that particular group as they were last year. I guess if you switch the sides of the tackles, you know what I mean? So you have Fuaga on the left side, and he's been great, I think. He's going to have his rookie growing pains, but when he gets back from injury, obviously he's the day one starter. The right side is the one where I just have no idea. Do they stick with Trevor Penning? It seems kind of stubborn because Penning has been so up and down this camp, but there's not really anyone waiting in the wings to take over that spot. They wanted, I think, Nick Saldivari to possibly contend for that left guard spot. He got hurt. So I have a lot of questions right now, and I don't really think that, the 1 or 2 good drives yesterday have answered that yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I think a lot of people have questions. My thing is, like, it appears, and you would obviously know far better than me, but because you've watched practice, from what I've gathered from speaking with you and the other folks that have been out there, like, this, what you see in practice doesn't look anything like what you're seeing in the game. Does that sound correct to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. I think everyone's going to kind of fixate on, well, they're not going to show much in the game. Also, you have a bunch of players that aren't playing in this game because they're dealing with injuries. I get all that, but I also think that that's often something that happens from training camp to training camp. You come out of camp practices, people look good, the wide receivers are making these catches, and then sometimes that doesn't always translate to the game. So I try to be cautious, about and measured about whatever takes I have, I guess. And maybe sometimes that comes across as more negative, but it's more that there's just specific things I watch for that I feel like they haven't addressed yet. But, we'll see in a few weeks. Honestly, it's pretty close.
How do you handicap the running back spot after Alvin Kamara when he gets back?
I think that Jamal Williams has had a better last few weeks of camp than I felt about him at the beginning. I still think it's a pretty wide gap between Kamara and everyone else. I think that Jordan Mims has done what he needs to do to make this roster. But I still wonder, and the same thing I've been saying for weeks, do they go out and try to get a running back? They've done that before at the end of camp. And not like a big free agent signing or whatnot, or, I guess those don't exist at this point. But And maybe they try to pick up one on the waiver wire. I don't know. But, yeah, it's definitely I still see that big gap. And I think that Taysom Hill will be utilized a lot. If anything is positive coming out of that game, it's that Taysom still looks like the do-it-all guy that we've seen for years.
You don't want to make too much of one play in the preseason, but I saw that you did make a tweet about this specific play. When Dobbs scored the touchdown, Jordan Howden kind of whiffed there, and we've heard Dennis Allen talk about the safety spot a good bit. We know they brought in a prospective all-pro safety that ended up signing with Atlanta. Where do you think the spot next to Tyrann Mathieu stands right now?
Yeah, I think that they probably would have liked Jordan Howden to take that and run with it. That hasn't happened, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't be out looking for expensive safeties. I think that it still could be Jonathan Abram. I mean, it's kind of a little up in the air. I think what happens is that people tend to not watch the safety position as much from day to day at camp because, there's other things you're watching for. You're watching the cornerback spot. We're watching the defensive line a lot. Because of the issues there, I say issues, just, is Foskey going to step up? Is Peyton Turner going to step up? So sometimes your eyes tend to not go to the safety, and I feel like that makes it just not talked about as much. I think that, Will Harris could be one potential guy there, Jonathan Abram. I think Howden maybe needs more time. I don't know, but it's kind of one of those things where you're just kind of like, at this point, no one has totally stepped up yet.
All right, let's talk about the backup quarterbacks. I briefly was chatting about it before we had you on. They both got pretty good amount of action in the game last night. Where do you think that battle stands?
I think that neither one of them has totally separated himself yet. Both of them have done good things. I think Haener probably had a better last week, but Rattler has, had a lot of good moments throughout camp. I think he's come a long way since OTAs and minicamp, and that's great. You kind of saw yesterday, there's a reason that they're going to be the backups. They're still young. They're going to make mistakes. I don't have a front runner yet. So I think what's going to happen is that they're going to have all three quarterbacks on the active roster. You don't want to risk Rattler going through waivers. And maybe Haener, just having a year under him, would have the nod if something were to happen, but you also have Taysom Hill, I guess, if they ever have an emergency. That's not really a great answer, I know, but it's kind of been, back and forth throughout camp in my mind.
I think that's kind of the page that everybody's on at this point. This is kind of a big picture deal. You can take it whichever way you want, but as far as the injuries go, the list is very, very long. Is there one or two that are more concerning to you?
That's a good question. Because I'm trying to go through it in my
head. To me, I'll toss. When is Marshawn Lattimore coming back?
Okay, yes, that's a good. I was trying to go through them all. That I actually was opening up my mouth to ask Dennis Allen about that the other day, and he walked off, so I didn't get out the question fast enough. Matt, he didn't hear me say it or anything. I hadn't even gotten it out. That is the big question because he's missed all of camp. Now you have your rookie leaving with an injury. Sometimes Allen does tend to say that he's not concerned about injuries, and they end up being way more serious. I don't know. I haven't had any updates about that. But that one is the concerning one just because Lattimore has had a lot of injuries over the last few years, and they tend to linger. So I would be concerned. Is he going to be ready week one? If we're coming up on that now, so I would think that, they would be eager to get him back. Another one that we haven't talked about a lot is Jawan Johnson, still working his way back. He's doing stuff on the sideline. I think that timeline is where it's supposed to be, but, obviously he's someone that they need to get him back in the lineup pretty soon, too, if he's going to be ready for regular season. And then Shaheed, I would just be worried because I think he deals with hamstring injuries a lot, so that's probably something they're always going to have to watch. Although this is a new one. Allen said toe, so I don't know how severe that is.
We'll just have to see. Saints have 3 weeks to try to get as healthy as possible before they start playing games for real. Cat, we appreciate some time.
Yep, anytime.
Kat Terrell, ESPN Saints reporter. You can follow her on Twitter at @Kat_Terrell. Does an awesome job on the Saints beat, and we appreciate a little bit of time here on this Monday. If you're looking for our Saints coverage, you can find it a couple different places. Hunt Palmer Show, you can find it Hunt on Saints on YouTube. You can also find it on LouisianaSports.net. Ross Jackson has a ton of pieces up from last night and also has a film study piece that he's working on today. Will get posted up at some point this afternoon. All right, when we come back, I want to do a little bit of an exercise here. Just to kind of get ready for some SEC football. I have got a list of every SEC projected starting quarterback, and I have put them into 4 tiers. Where's Garrett Nussmeier, and where does everybody else go? We'll talk about that coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. How about the bathroom of your dreams? How much would that change your current living situation? Well, go get some inspiration at the website, OneBathAndClosets.com. You can also follow them on Instagram to see some pictures of their fantastic work. Look, maybe it's a full-scale renovation. They can handle that. They can handle the entire process, start to finish. You make one phone call, and they do the rest. That's it, One Bath and Closets. Maybe it's not a full-scale renovation. Maybe it's something simple like a tub-to-shower conversion. You don't ever use the tub. Rip it out, put in a gorgeous glass walk-in shower, change the entire look of that bathroom, change the functionality of that bathroom, add some value to your home. It's One Bath and Closets. The good news, if you get that free consultation at OneBathAndClosets.com, tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you over there, $1,000 off of your project. $1,000 off. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. Get that consultation, see the testimonial, see pictures of their great work as well. It's all online, OneBathAndClosets.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Chrysler's Dodge Jeep Ram has back-to-school savings like $16,000 off 25 Ram 1500 trucks. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $16,000 off. All new Bayou vehicles come with a complimentary extended warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial properties. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
It's an everyday thing here. We work horses in the mornings and we work on the property during the day, and without these John Deere tractors, it'd almost be impossible to keep up with the place. I've dealt with some of the other colors and stuff, and I never really got the response back that I get from John Deere, We really enjoy dealing with Sunshine. They're good people. They always check on us and make sure our equipment's running, and we love them. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756.
Moscona inviting join us for Monday's AFR, presented by Relief Windows. LSU opens up the final week of fall camp. We'll have a Saturday camp report, and we'll recap Saints-Niners in preseason game number 2. 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
All right, let's talk some SEC football here. I want to just kind of do this exercise, one, because I think it's interesting, but two, it just helps me kind of get into the flow of covering the SEC. We've been so heavy on LSU and the Saints the last 3 weeks with practices. We've just been like inundated with that content. And that's awesome because that's what we want to consume the most. But now with week 0 coming up this week and then the full slate of action that's coming up in 2 weeks, like I think it's time to start dipping my toe a little bit more into the Southeastern Conference as a whole because we'll be talking a good bit about that. And so I went and got all the 16 now starting quarterbacks in the SEC and decided to put them into tiers. And I didn't have a set number of tiers I was going to go with. I was just going to see how it broke out. It turns out I've got 4. I've got 4 tiers of SEC quarterbacks. Beck, I have 3 SEC quarterbacks in tier number 1.
Okay.
Can you tell me who those 3 are? The cream of the SEC crop.
I'm going to guess that Quinn Ewers and Jackson Dart are in that group.
Both of those are in there.
And the third one, I will say Jalen Milroe.
No, I've got Carson Beck in there.
Fair enough.
Look, Carson Beck last year set the Georgia record for completion percentage. He's 72% completion. He threw 24 touchdowns and 6 picks, threw for just a tick under 4,000 yards. I could be convinced that he's got such a wonderful supporting cast that they prop him up and he's not quite as good as some of the other players in the league. But I don't know if I believe that. I think he's good. I think he's a potential number 1 overall pick. I think he's a potential top 5 pick. I think he's a potential Heisman Trophy player. He's definitely helped by being around 4,000 other 5 stars, but I think he's really good. Ewers last year, 349 yards and 3 touchdowns at Bama. And then against Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship, he threw for 452 yards in that game. I think he's got a good coach who calls really good plays. I think he's got a really good supporting cast of wide receivers. Isaiah Bond comes over there, is going to help him. But I think Quinn Ewers is good. I think he's is among the best players in the Southeastern Conference. Jackson Dart probably wouldn't go in this tier for most people. But I think he's good. Like, his stats aren't super gaudy, but they're good. He threw for just a tick under 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns to 5 picks. Here's the deal with Jackson Dart. It's pretty simple. Against LSU, Texas A&M, and Penn State, he threw for almost 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. So that's an average of better than 300 yards per game, 9 touchdowns, 0 pick. That's great. He was not good against Alabama and Georgia. In those 2 games, he totaled 356 yards, so about 160 yards per game, no touchdowns and 2 picks. Now, if you watched the Ole Miss-Georgia game, Ole Miss could not block Georgia. Like, he had no chance in that game, and that's the game that kind of triggered Lane Kiffin to say afterward, like, we don't look like them. And that's what he tried to change in the transfer portal this year, and they look a little bit more like Georgia. But in any event, Jackson Dart wasn't great in those games, so he's to elevate all the way to the top of the league, he's going to have to play better against really good teams. He did not do that last year, but I think he's got the ability to. I think he's a really good quarterback. That's my tier 1. Tier 2 are proven commodities that I just don't think are quite in that level. But good players. Jalen Milroe and Brady Cook come in here. Milroe, 218 yards passing per game. To me, he needs to run more. Y'all all remember the LSU game because you were watching that, and he ran 20 times in that game. It was a nightmare for LSU. He scored 4 touchdowns on the ground, but he didn't do that as much throughout the course of the season. Why not? You got that asset. I realize that you don't want your quarterback taking 22 hits every single Saturday, but like, he's really good at it, and I think he ought to run more. That's to me, that's what I would do if I was Kalen DeBoer. We'll just have to see. Then Brady Cook, I think, is in tier 2. I don't think he's an elite level talent, but he's a good player. He threw for 3,300 yards last year. He threw 21 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. He had a rushing touchdown in 8 of their 13 games, so he does have that asset. I mean, Brady Cook's job mainly this year is, hey, throw the ball to Luther Burden. That's the gig. And he'll probably do that a lot. And if he does, things will happen that are positive for the Missouri Tigers. But that's my tier 2.
Could I not convince you to add Graham Mertz to that category?
You could.
He was solid last year.
I will get into that. I think that this next group is potentially really good. I mean, it would not completely floor me if the SEC Offensive Player of the Year came from tier 3 here. But I just don't. They're not. In some cases, they're not proven, and in Mertz's case, I don't know that his ceiling's quite as high as some of those guys. So in Tier 3, I've got Graham Mertz, and then a bunch of young guys. I've got Connor Wigman, Nico Iamaleava, Garrett Nussmeier, Jackson Arnold. Like all highly thought of recruits, some more so than others. Like Arnold and Iamaleava were huge recruits. Wigman was a 5-star by some and a 4-star by others. Nussmeier was a 4-star that's been around a good bit. And then Mertz is just a grizzled vet. But you look at Mertz last year, 2,900 yards, 20 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. That's really efficient. But Florida doesn't win any games. So I don't know what to make of that part of it. He can't run at all. He was negative in rushing yards. He's not a great athlete, but he's Danny Etling. Like that's what I kind of think that Graham Mertz is. And so I just don't think he has the ceiling to put him up in one of the top 2 tiers. I'm probably higher on Wigman than most, which everybody will roll their eyes because I always overinflate what Texas A&M is on the football field, and this is no exception to that. He's only thrown 2 interceptions in 251 career attempts at A&M. He hasn't stayed healthy, but he's taken care of the ball. He's a good athlete. I was so impressed with him in that game 2 years ago in College Station against LSU. I just thought he was excellent in that game in a really tough spot. That was a bad A&M team. That was a good LSU team that had a pretty good defense, and he was great that night in College Station, and A&M just wore LSU out. I'm putting a ton of stock in Nico, and it's probably because he had a lot of stars next to his game in recruiting. It's not that he's done anything. In the bowl game against Iowa, he was 12 of 19 for 151 yards and a touchdown. He had 3 rushing touchdowns in the game, but it wasn't like he lit it up. It wasn't like Miller Moss or even Garrett Nussmeier in the bowl game. Those guys statistically were better in kind of their first try as the leader of the offense. But a lot of people think a lot of him, and I think that's because I think Heupel's system's so good. It's so advantageous to a quarterback. I think Nico's going to be pretty good. And then Jackson Arnold, another guy who had a good bowl game, threw for 361 against Arizona. Did turn it over 3 times, 3 picks in that game for Oklahoma. But he's a big talent. And for Dylan Gabriel to up and leave, I thought was odd. And we'll see how Jackson Arnold handles being the dude. But that's where I am with Tier 3. Wigman, Iamaleava, Mertz, Nussmeier, and Jackson Arnold. Then the bottom tier of SEC quarterbacks. I've got Peyton Thorne here at Auburn. I just don't think that he's got much of an upside. Like, he's played a ton of college football, which is good, but last year, 1,700 yards, 16 touchdowns, 10 picks. I'm told, I'm not going to go back and watch a ton of Auburn football tape. The word is, especially from Cole Kublik, that Auburn's wide receivers were terrible last year and that they didn't give Thorne any chance. That may be true. And they've tried to address that. Cam Coleman figures to be really good, but I don't think a ton of Thorne. Brock Vandegrift hasn't really played at all. He could theoretically, I guess, go into this Nussmeier, Jackson Arnold, Iamaleava tier because he was highly thought of when he came out of high school and went to Georgia. But he's now at Kentucky. Diego Pavia, that's a guy who was the quarterback at New Mexico State last year when they crushed Auburn 31-10. He's now the quarterback at Vanderbilt, but I don't give you much of a chance if you play quarterback for Vanderbilt. Blake Shapen comes from Baylor over to Mississippi State to run the offense for Jeff Lebby. I could be convinced that he could go up a tier, but again, I don't know that he's a massively talented thrower. We'll see what he can do. Lenora Sellers is the quarterback for South Carolina. He was a 3-star recruit, only 4 career pass attempts. All those were against Furman. He did have a 36-yard touchdown run against Vanderbilt. He's a dual threat guy, a really good athlete. LSU will see him pretty early on in SEC action, but I'm not high on South Carolina this year either. And then Talon Green takes over at Arkansas. I don't know how else to put this other than to tell you that Talon Green did not have impressive statistics or game tape at Boise State, and now he's going to Arkansas. And the inverse of what you had at Boise State is going to be true at Arkansas, meaning at Boise State, you, generally speaking, have better talent than the team you're playing against. Boise State, for their level, is generally a better football team. At Arkansas, Talon Green now shows up, and he's going to have a worse roster than the other team in every SEC game they play. So for a guy that completed 57% of his throws at Boise State, had 11 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, I don't know how good I feel about that coming into the SEC. Playing Texas, playing A&M, playing Bama or Georgia. Like I think Arkansas is going to be atrocious this year. Awful. And I just don't have much confidence in Taylon Green. You're telling me you're not productive at Boise State and you're going to come to the SEC and flip that switch? I don't think so. So I got Taylon Green down there in Tier 4 with Peyton Thorne, Brock Vandegrift, Diego Pavia, Lenora Sellers, and Blake Shapen. I think the Tier 1 and Tier 2 are not super interesting to me. I think those guys kind of are what they are, and they're really good players. Tier 3 is going to be where the things separate. Some of these guys are going to be really, really good players and give their team a chance to make the playoff, whether that's Jackson Arnold, Nussmeier, Nico, Wigman, and a couple of guys aren't going to pan out and aren't going to have quite the season that they want. But I think the separation and the biggest variance of what teams could be based on quarterback play is right there in Tier 3, and LSU's squarely in that. We'll see what LSU is. I'm confident in Garrett Nussmeier. We'll just have to see when the lights come on against USC. Things were pretty good in that bowl game, but it's a whole different bowl game when you start talking about playing a season opener with championship aspirations where those are gone when you play in a bowl game. So just my thoughts on the SEC quarterbacks coming into the 2024 season. Got some interesting news regarding Jaden Daniels. We'll talk about that to close out hour number 1 coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Every shot, every goal, ESPN Bet has fans covered for the biggest moments on the road to a championship. The exclusive sportsbook of ESPN is the only place where you can find special offers and promotions from your favorite ESPN shows and personalities throughout the playoffs. New users can get a bet reset up to $1,000 in bonus bets. If your first bet doesn't win, download ESPN Bet today. What a play. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. In partnership with the Bears Lake Charles. Terms, conditions apply. See app for details.
Get the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge app powered by Bayou Ford and tap the microphone icon to send us your thoughts in an audio message. Your message could be played on air during Off the Bench with Esther and T-Bob, The Hunt Palmer Show, and after further review with Matt Moscone.
Back to school savings at Bayou Ford. $12,000 off F-150. $12,000 off a new 2024 Ford F-150. And $10,000 off Expedition. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a complimentary extended warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our number one product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com. Oh, by the way, we do shutters too.
There's nothing chill about a hot, sweaty line. Unless you add Mountain Cold Refreshment. Coors Light. Choose chill.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has back-to-school savings like $16,000 off 25 Ram 1500 trucks. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $16,000 off. All new Bayou vehicles come with a complimentary extended warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
There it is, the extra mile on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded.
On Tuesdays, OTB. We start to look forward to what you need to see out of your New Orleans Saints heading to the final preseason game. Plus, the Tigers continue to march to Vegas, and college football is officially set to return. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
In news that surprises absolutely nobody, Jaden Daniels was just named the starting quarterback for the Washington Commanders. Of course, Daniels was the second pick in the NFL draft and will start his career as the starter over in Washington. You know, that's a spot that was really, really bad for a long time. And now there's new ownership, and there feels like there's a breath of fresh air, and you've got a new quarterback, and hopefully they can kind of change things around. It's not so dissimilar to Joe Burrow ending up in Cincinnati. Now, the Bengals had more success than Washington of late. The Carson Palmer teams were okay, and they made the playoffs a few times. They had no success when they got to the playoffs, but they were a competitive AFC franchise. For a lot of time, Washington's just been a mess. On the field and off the field. And now it just feels like there's a little bit of a more positive aura around that organization than there was in the Snyder years. And Jaden has a ton to do with that. I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to make great decisions. I think he's going to be accurate. And I know he's going to be really, really fast. I still remember being in the Superdome. I've told this story a few times, but I was in the Dome for the Florida State game, Jaden's first start in 2022. And usually I'm in the press box, which is way up high. But they didn't have room in the press box for the pre- and post-game show radio host guy. They had folks that were sitting there writing. So instead, I got a ticket from LSU and went down and watched from the stands, which I don't ever do. Man, a lot of people were drunk at that game. A lot of people real drunk as a perfectly sober person in the stands. That Sunday night kickoff in New Orleans, just like people were just, it was quite a scene. However, that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is LSU gets the ball, and Jaden takes off running. You remember in the first couple of drives, he ran a ton. And when he took off running, I was like, oh, man, he runs like a wide receiver. Like, this is not like, oh, he's pretty fast for a quarterback. Like, this is a dude who's got legit speed on the edge. And, of course, we know that he was an incredible runner for 2 years at LSU and didn't rely on it quite as much this past year because he was doing such a great job throwing the football. He's had a really nice start to his 2 preseason games, and he will be the starter for Washington as they enter the season. That means when Washington comes to New Orleans to play the Saints late in the season, he'll obviously be the starter, barring any sort of injury. We'll talk coming up in the second hour to Denton Day, who's a big Washington Commanders fan, and get his feelings on how things are going with Jaden Daniels. I told Denton that we were going to talk a bunch about national college football, and we'll mix some Jaden talk in. And he said, well, please forgive me if we just only talk about Jaden, because that's all I want to talk about. So we'll talk to Denton coming up in the second hour. I also did want to mention here at the end of hour number 2 as well that Trey Morgan was called up to Double-A over the weekend. Just had a phenomenal go in Single A. Hit 371 with 24 extra base hits and 44 runs driven in for the Bowling Green Hot Rods. He'll head up to Montgomery to play for the Biscuits, one of the great team names and logos in all of minor league baseball. Morgan, part of the Rays organization, has just had a fantastic go of it. I was really curious to see how Trey Morgan's arc would go professionally, because he doesn't hit for power and he plays a position where power hitting is desired. It's hard to find shortstops and second basemen and catchers that can hit for a lot of power, and you've got to get power in your lineup, and one place you can put it is first base more often than not, and Trey doesn't hit for a lot of power. So if you put him at first base, that means you're probably taking some thump out of your lineup. So I thought maybe he'd have to go play a corner outfield spot. We saw him do that here last year or 2 years ago at LSU. But he's played some first base, and he swung the bat really, really well. That's an incredible clip to hit at 371. If you'll remember earlier this summer, he was invited to play in this Futures game, the skills competition, a part of that, and now he's up in AA, the third member of that 2023 National Championship squad to reach AA. Of course, Paul Skeens flew through the system, is in the big leagues now. Dylan Cruz up in AAA. He made it through AA, and now Trey Morgan up there in AAA, so he'll be in Montgomery for the foreseeable future. And AA is close to the big leagues. I realize that you got AAA there, but sometimes folks can go from AA up. I would imagine Trey will probably spend some time there, probably the rest of this season, and have a chance to compete for a roster spot coming up in the in spring training next year, which is fantastic for him. I was curious to see how this would go in professional baseball, and it seems like it's going really well for Trey Morgan. All right, that's it for hour number 1 here on a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, Trey Beal and the folks at Gulf Coast Office Products have got you covered. Check them out, GCOPnet.com. Open the show today talking about the commitment LSU got over the weekend at defensive back, flip from the Longhorns. Cat Terrell joined us at 1:15 to talk about all things New Orleans Saints. And then, of course, got into some SEC quarterback tiers. If you missed any of our show, you can always catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab. All of our shows are logged there each and every day in their entirety. You got Off the Bench, you got Live at Lunch, Hunt Palmer Show, and AFR, all there at 1045ESPN.com or wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, wherever you find your sound, you can always find us. Just search Hunt Palmer Show. Like, subscribe, rate, and review. Busy hour number 2. I've got takes on the New Orleans Saints game from last night. Got some sound from Brian Kelly yesterday. Denton Day is going to join us to talk some college football. So plenty to get to over the next hour and 5 minutes. We'll pause for SportsCenter. When we come back, my thoughts on the Saints' loss in San Francisco last night. What does it mean moving forward? A lot of injuries, some backup quarterback talk. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Come back after SportsCenter. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
It's no secret. The best oysters in Baton Rouge are at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar. Enjoy mouth-watering South Louisiana flavor and oysters from all over the country. And don't forget our nightly drink specials. Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar, located in downtown Baton Rouge.
Back to school savings at Bayou Ford. $12,000 off F-150. $12,000 off the new 2024 Ford F-150. And $10,000 off Expedition. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a complimentary extended warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
BRAC teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. BRAC, your #1 park system in the nation.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
It's an everyday thing here. We work horses in the mornings and we work on the property during the day, and without these John Deere tractors, it'd almost be impossible to keep up with the place. I've dealt with some of the other colors and stuff, and I never really got the response back that I get from John Deere, We really enjoy dealing with Sunshine. They're good people. They always check on us and make sure our equipment's running, and we love them. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com.
The best-kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Breaking NFL news, Jaden Daniels, the second overall pick in this year's NFL draft, has been named the Commanders' starting quarterback as expected. He's been working with the first team exclusively in training camp, and the Commanders certainly like what they saw out of him in this preseason, explains ESPN's Dan Orlovsky.
The things that were the superpowers of his in college football, some of the ball placement, it's shown itself through the first 2 weeks of the preseason. He's getting the ball out quickly. It's going to the right shoulder. They've designed or used some designed quarterback runs.
In the opinion of Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel and his predecessor Brian Flores couldn't be more different, told the Dan Le Batard show of the negative daily reinforcement he got from Flores, opposed to the laid-back, encouraging style of McDaniel. The Falcons will sit rookie quarterback Michael Penix for Friday's preseason finale. Braves third baseman Austin Riley expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks with a fractured right hand. Atlanta is 7 games back of NL East leading Philadelphia and has a 2-game lead for the final NL wildcard spot on the Mets.
Hey, it's Evan Cohen. Coming up Tuesday, we continue to get you ready for football. We go 2-a-days with the Dolphins and the Rams. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something quite extraordinary?
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show. The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Number 2, Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Denton Day in 30 minutes, talking Jaden Daniels and some national college football stories. New Orleans Saints lose last night to the San Francisco 49ers. Final score, although that's of very little significance, was 16-10. San Francisco does win it. But I did have some takeaways, some positive, some negative, and we'll kind of empty the notebook here, and we'll hear some sound from Dennis Allen as well. On a positive note, I thought that Chase Young looked awesome again. He is an absolute terror. He is healthy. He is physical. He is a presence, and he's going to be a problem for opposing offensive lines. I think this is going to end up being a phenomenal deal that the Saints were able to strike. I loved it from the start, and it has done nothing but prove to be a positive every time Chase Young takes the field, whether it's at practice where everyone who's there says he's been phenomenal, or if it's in these abbreviated stints in these preseason games. He's just been great, and I'm hopeful about the pass rush and edge play of the New Orleans Saints with Granderson, with Young, and then with Cam Jordan doing whatever it is that he's able to do for this team. I think that's really, really good news. On a negative, same place, there's just not much room for positivity on Isaiah Foskey. Like, he's out there for a lot of snaps, and they are just not good snaps. I don't get into too much Pro Football Focus here and grades and all that kind of stuff, but his grades are awful, and it just doesn't appear that there's much flash. Like, it'd be one thing if it was like Peyton Turner. Like, Peyton Turner got into the backfield a couple of times last night. Now, he whiffed a couple of times, but he at least makes the play to get back there. Foskey is just out in the wash like the entire time. You don't even notice he's out there. And that's the exact opposite of what you want from a defensive lineman. It's good when you don't notice an offensive lineman's out there. That means that things are pretty boring and under control. When you don't notice a defensive lineman, it's because they're just not making any sort of impact. And that's just what it feels like from Isaiah Foskey. You could sweep it under the rug a little bit in his first year as a rookie. Like, okay, he's still learning, figuring some things out. But this is not some project they brought in. This is a really productive college football player, and he just has not been good at all. And I feel like you're looking at maybe a likelihood that your first 2 picks in last year's draft just don't help. And that's so tough to get past. So going back to the good side of things, the offense mounted a 16-play drive that looked efficient and looked good. It was sustained. I'm just going to lay this out there when we're talking about this Saints offense. Like, I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in anything good or bad with the Saints' first-team offense because I don't think they're running their offense. I mean, Derek Carr says in the television interview last night, he's like, hey, I mean, we're not really showing anything. And you realize that the people who are covering the team that are at practice every day that are seeing what the Saints are doing with their motions and their zone runs and all the things that they're doing at practice, then they get to the games and they're on television against a real team and they're not running any of that. So I don't really care if it looks really good or really bad because it's not their offense. So I can't get too worked up about it. But Dennis Allen did speak with the media after the game and talked about that 16-play drive that the starters embarked on.
Yeah, I like our ability to be able to run the football, some play-action passing game. I think, certainly I'd like for us to be able to get some explosive plays. I know this team that we just played traditionally doesn't give up a lot of explosive plays, so I think we knew kind of going into the game, that would be kind of challenging. But in the way that we were able to run the football, on that drive, I thought that was, really, really encouraging.
We're 3 weeks from seeing the Saints offense. Like, I don't know how more blunt I can be about that. You can see some things offensively. Guys are running hard, or some of the offensive linemen are struggling in pass protection or doing a good job in pass protection. Like, there are bits and pieces you can take away from the preseason performance, but in a big picture, like, this is not their offense. So I'm just not going to spend too much time analyzing all of that. On the other positive, Blake Grupe has had a good camp. He's been good from all accounts in practice. He's been good in not very much action in the game, but he knocked one through from 52 yesterday, and I think has had a really solid camp thus far, and that's good because last year he struggled, and there were times where he was not very good. He was great in camp, not as good when the lights came on. No way to simulate that properly, but I feel pretty good about the early returns on Blake Grupe in his second year here in the NFL. So good stuff there. Negative, Kool-Aid McKinstry goes down, gets hurt. That's a guy that they're really trying to evaluate and see where he stands, especially with Marshawn Lattimore out. Paulson Adebo's dealt with some injuries as well. So it was just not great to see Kool-Aid go down, and Dennis Allen spoke to what he knew about Kool-Aid after the game.
He has a knee injury. I think we avoided, anything serious. Now, what kind of time we're looking at, I really have no idea. But I think we escaped that I think we escaped the game, at least on initial report, without any major injuries.
That's kind of the ticket for the Saints right now. Like, they've got a lot of injuries, but you hope that none of them are major. We had Cat Terrell in back in the first hour, and we were talking about Marshawn Lattimore, talking about Rashid Shaheed. Not great that Rashid Shaheed's been dealing with some hamstring stuff, and now they're talking about a toe injury. You need Kendre Miller to show up and try to make the team. I mean, there are a lot of injuries, but we don't have anybody that's been carted off and feels like that they're out for the season. Like, you've avoided the disastrous injuries. You've just got a lot of them, and the Saints have got to find a way over the next 3 weeks to get healthy. So certainly on the negative side of things there with the injury. And I'll finish with one more positive here from the game, and it's on defense. Anthony Orji is playing great football, and I really think is positioned nicely to make this team. He had 8 tackles to lead the team. 7 of those were solo. You can see him all over the place playing defense. He got his hands on a couple of passes and deflected them. I think he's done a really, really nice job. It's not a guy that I think is a starting caliber player right now, even though he was pretty good last night. And you feel good about what you've got at linebacker. Certainly DeMario is fantastic. You've got Werner. But I think Orji, among the folks that got a lot of run yesterday, probably played the best. And again, you've got a lot of tape back at practice that they'll evaluate as well. But as far as game tape goes, it feels like Anthony Orji's got a pretty good chance to stick around for a little bit. I think the Saints have kind of got a hit there. Former Vanderbilt linebacker, the Saints signed, and I think did a really, really good job. I'll just kind of close with this, talking about the Saints in the preseason games. There's just not a ton of meat on that bone in my estimation. The preseason used to be a little bit more informative, in my opinion. When guys played a little bit more, and I think you saw a little bit more, there was more, but you saw so many guys that aren't going to have an appreciable impact on the NFL season playing out there. And you're seeing so little of what the Saints are actually going to do schematically that you're just looking for like tiny things beyond injuries that are like, individual reps. And it's just, I have a hard time getting in here and making sweeping generalizations on what the Saints 2024 season is going to look like based on this glorified practice. I wish the Saints would have done some good-on-good practice with the 49ers this past week. That would have been a little bit more informative about how guys look. But San Francisco's too banged up to do it, so they weren't able to do any of that. We're not going to know very much about the Saints for 3 weeks, in my estimation. We'll keep talking about it. We'll keep analyzing things, and we'll look at it. But there's just not a ton of meat on that preseason bone for me to sit here and try to fire off hot takes on. I don't necessarily have a ton of those. So Saints do lose. They come back home. Now they'll be in Metairie for the next 3 weeks, getting ready to take on the Panthers in game 1 of the regular season coming up 3 weeks from yesterday. All right, when we come back, Brian Kelly met with the media on Saturday. We'll tell you what he had to say and some of our thoughts on that coming up next.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, not Highland Insurance Group, which we'll talk about here briefly. Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is the website. Mitchell Fisher and his local team are just fantastic to work with. The customer service that they treat all their clients with is second to none. We are happy clients of Audio Video Security Solutions. They handled all of our in-home audio. They handle all of our security system. And if there is a situation where something comes up or we're not sure how to work something, just call Mitchell Fisher's cell phone, 225-439-7920. Mitchell Fisher, in 2 instances in the last 3 months, has shown up that afternoon to make sure things are fixed. It's fantastic. It's a great feature of working with a local company like Audio Video Security Solutions. Always invite you to check out their Instagram feed. I think it tells a great story about some of the things that they're capable of doing. Their Instagram is at AVSS_BR, AVSS_BR. I tell you all the time, they're the People's Choice Award winner for the best vendor at the Parade of Homes earlier this year. It's Audio Video Security Solutions. Check them out online, avssla.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
It's no secret. The best oysters in Baton Rouge are at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar. Enjoy mouth-watering South Louisiana flavor and oysters from all over the country. And don't forget our nightly drink specials. Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar, located in downtown Baton Rouge.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years.
Charles Hannegriff, join us for the Tuesday edition of Live at Lunch from Mike Anderson Seafood, Wesley at Nicholson. Andy Isco joins us from Las Vegas, and we do first class, second class, no class. Live at Lunch from Mike Anderson's 11 a.m. Tuesday on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Shout out to Trey Beal and folks at Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, they got you covered at Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com, bringing our Monday shows each and every week. Brian Kelly met with the media back on Saturday and had a few things to talk about. The first one, unfortunately, got some sick guys in the LSU football team. Had a stomach bug that kind of ran through the team. DJ Chester and Emory Jones missed time on Saturday, and Brian Kelly talked about that.
So we've had a bug going around, a lower GI bug through the O-line, and Emory was affected greatly from it today. You saw he was in and out. He probably shouldn't have been out there, but you couldn't keep him from practice. That's what he was suffering from. We sent him home. I don't know how Whit Weeks and West Weeks made it through practice. They had a similar bug. We've sprayed the offices. We've cleaned them down. But, we're fighting that right now with a number of guys.
Better now than in 2 weeks. I very, very rarely get sick. That just doesn't happen all that often. But I did get sick a couple months ago. I got one of those stomach bugs that I hadn't probably had since high school. Football practice was not an option for me. That was just not going to be an option. I don't know what these guys had, but for the Weeks brothers and Emory Jones to be out there with some sort of bug in that heat in pads dealing with that, that's something. I'll pass on that experience for sure. Offensive line, there were a couple more bites. Tyree Adams has been working as the second team left tackle, and I believe him to be the number 3 tackle on this team. I think either side, left or right, he would probably be the next man up should unfortunately anything happen to Will Campbell or Emory Jones. We'll knock on wood there. And Brian Kelly talked about his confidence in Tyree Adams.
I thought he did some good things. We're bouncing him around. He's playing tackle and guard. And so, I think, we like his athleticism. We like him right now in a I think, a developmental role where, I think he's probably the next guy. He's still got a ways to go for consistency, but he's going to flash. We just got to get that to be more consistent.
Adams really looks the part when you go out to practice. I mean, he is long, he is lean, he moves very well. Like, he is a prototypical tackle type prospect. I mean, he's not Will Campbell, he's not a first-team All-American, but he's working towards being potentially the next left tackle at LSU. And I was curious to hear him talk about the fact that he would kind of be the next guy up no matter where. We have a piece up at LouisianaSports.net right now where I polled the entire station and asked about the most indisposable player on LSU's roster outside of Garrett Nussmeier. Jacoby and Guillory got some thoughts there. I would tend to potentially agree with that. I threw Mason Taylor's hat into the ring. But Will Campbell got mentioned by a couple as well, because you realize if you take Will Campbell out, Emory Jones may go to left tackle, and maybe Tyree Adams goes to right tackle. Maybe they just plug Tyree Adams in at left tackle, where we've seen him working in camp. That would be a big step down, but you have to have guys ready to go on the offensive line. Like, you have to, because you can't play 13 games of football and not have some guys get dinged up on the offensive line. It's too physical. They're in too compromised a position, oftentimes getting rolled up on, that kind of thing. You've got to have depth at offensive line. And LSU's got a ton of talent, just a question of how quickly can those young guys get ready to play. Hopefully you don't need them, but the fact of the matter is that you very likely will, and Tyree Adams would be one of those guys. Garrett Dellinger is another guy that Brian Kelly was speaking about back on Saturday. Here's talk about his senior guard.
We know each other, and we've had a relationship since we've gotten here over that, because I recruited him. So we knew each other like my first day here. That was a guy that I knew. So, I think we've had a relationship since day one. So that's kind of been nice. But having him as a guy that can play a couple of positions for us has been really important, on that offensive line. Because now that you got a guy that's got a lot of experience, a lot of snaps, played a lot of football, a lot of winning football for you. The snapping doesn't come easy to him, but he's gotten really much more proficient at it. He was good today with it, a couple of low snaps, but I think he's feeling much more comfortable with it.
Remember, Dellinger was the starting center 2 years ago in the Florida State game in the Superdome. And when LSU went to the whole offensive line shake-up, they put Charles Turner in, and they put Emory Jones, the freshman, out at right tackle, and they did a lot of things between weeks 1 and week 2 to help the offensive line that just got whitewashed against Florida State in that game in New Orleans. So he's got experience playing center. My gut tells me if DJ Chester were to go down or wasn't playing well enough, that Dellinger could go in there and play center, and maybe you pull Ty Adams in there at guard. That may be something they do, as opposed to going to Cohen Eccles right away as a true freshman who's been working with the twos at center. So interesting. I hadn't seen Garrett Dellinger doing a lot of snapping, but he was doing that on Saturday, and Brian Kelly kind of alluded to the fact that, hey, he could be called upon to do that. Sticking with the offensive side of things, Chris Hilton is a guy that I think is primed for a monster year. I think he could be really, really good for LSU this year. His issue's never been talent, never really been technique. His issue's been staying healthy. And Brian Kelly talked about trying to be careful with Chris Hilton.
I think he'll be all right. It was an ankle. It wasn't Owen talked to me after. He said, I think it'd be best we just keep him out. So didn't seem to be, high ankle or something that would be affecting him for long term. Much more of about a precautionary ankle right now.
Chris Hilton has been in college for 3 full years. This is his 4th year. If he needs to sit down for a week to get ready to go in Vegas, then sit down for a week. Like, that's my deal. I realize that coaches want players to practice. Players want to be out there and practice. But this is a guy who's experienced. He's been in Cortez Hankton and Joe Sloan's offense now for 3 years. He understands where to be, what to do. He's got a ton of talent, and he's had a really good camp. If he is compromised in any way, or could re-aggravate that ankle in any way, like, there's just not a need to push it. And I think that's kind of what they're alluding to. That's kind of what the trainer's alluding to. Like, he's okay to sit down. So we'll see. We'll be back out there on Wednesday for practice, and we'll get a report and see if Chris Hilton is out there and running around going through things full speed. Garrett Nussmeier was a topic of conversation with Brian Kelly back on Saturday.
Yeah, I thought he did some pretty good things. I mean, there were a couple of things in pressures that, he thinks he's got 52 timeouts. He takes timeouts when he wants to take a timeout. I think he's got to work through a couple of things out there where, decision making relative to some pressure looks that I want him to get better at. But I thought his process was really good today. He stayed within himself. He looked under control in the situations that we created for him today. And I think when he does that and his drop is in rhythm, he's really good. So I thought we saw a good version of him. I think there's a better version of him out there.
Interesting. Calling a lot of timeouts is the Nuss bus. But it seems like everything is on schedule with Garrett Nussmeier, and that he's kind of fitting into the mold of that starting quarterback that you knew he could be when he got to campus here. I'm excited to watch him play coming up in a couple of Sundays. I think he's going to have a really, really nice year. I think he could be a top 5-6 quarterback in the SEC. And back in the first hour, I put quarterbacks in the SEC into tiers and had Garrett Nussmeier right there in the third tier of quarterbacks. And a lot of that's just based on the fact that he hasn't played very much. That will change pretty quickly here in this season. And I think that LSU is going to be just fine with Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback. A position that I'm not as comfortable with right now is defensive back. And Brian Kelly talked about it, evaluating the DBs.
No, I think what you're doing is you're giving a lot of guys an opportunity. I think we read too much into the first group that goes out there. Look, there's going to be injuries, and that's part of this game. You have to have as much confidence as the next guy going in. If a guy, pulls a hamstring in the first series, that next guy has to be somebody that can go in and play at the highest level. So, I think it's much more about any guy that's getting a first or second team rep is a guy that we believe that can come in and help us win a championship. So I think if you don't see him in the first or second rotation, two deep and maybe a swing player, then he's probably not ready yet. And I say yet because, there are some guys that kind of begin to blossom a little bit later, but whoever you've kind of seen out there in the back end of the defense at this point, those are the guys that we're trying to get ready for USC.
So that's Sage Ryan. That's obviously Ashton Stamps. That's Major Burns. It's Juwan Johnson. That's Jordan Gilbert. That's Jordan Allen. And then you go to Jair Brown, J.K. Johnson. Like those are the guys we've seen with the ones and twos. That's a group of somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 guys, and that's going to be the guys that you're going to see. And that is probably the biggest pain point for me looking at this opening matchup with USC, with Lincoln Riley, with that offense, and with that group of players. You've got guys who are coming off injury who hadn't played very much, like Jair Brown and J.K. Johnson. You've got some guys that are moving positions. Sage Ryan's back and bouncing back and forth. Jordan Gilbert's coming off of an injury and hadn't played in a long time. Jordan Allen has not played very many meaningful snaps. Ashton Stamps was out there a lot as a freshman, but that defense wasn't very good. So I don't know how good that scar tissue is. But it's just there are just questions up and down that group, and it's baptism by fire because you're not opening with Rice in Tiger Stadium, who you're going to beat by 50. You're going to go against one of the best minds in all of college football right out of the chute, and those guys have got to get ready to go. So they got 2 weeks to do so. That's our look around Brian Kelly's thoughts from yesterday to set the schedule for this week. The Tigers did practice today, but we were not permitted to go in. Tomorrow, on Tuesday, they do have practice. We're not allowed in. Wednesday, they practice. We are able to go in for the first part of practice. That'll be the last day we can take photos and videos. And then practice in Tiger Stadium on Saturday. But it doesn't say in our release whether or not we're allowed to go to that. So we'll see. But as far as access that I know we get this week, Wednesday, we will certainly be out at practice and have a report for you. Looking forward to that very, very much. All right, let's take a timeout when we come back. Denton Day talking some national college football storylines, and he's a big Washington Commanders fan. We'll talk some Jaden Daniels, who was just announced as the starter for Washington in the opener. That's all coming up next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, Jonathan Carbo and his team over at the Highland Insurance Group, fantastic people. I know that insurance is not the most fun topic, certainly something that you've got to deal with, though, if you are a business owner. And if you don't really have any idea what your insurance program looks like or why you have it, that's a bad deal. Get with Jonathan Carbo and the Highland Insurance Group for your commercial property and casualty, for your employee and group benefits. If you have no idea why you have the property coverage you have no idea if you even have directors and officers insurance or what your umbrella limits are, you just know that your insurance is expensive, that's no good. You gotta have someone on your team that can help you. And the folks at Highlands Insurance Group are happy to do that. I say this every single day when we talk insurance and talk the Highland Insurance Group. If you're looking for a silver bullet price-wise that's just going to cut your insurance premiums by 30% because they're so inflated, that's not why you make the phone call to Highland Insurance Group. You make the phone call to Highland Insurance Group because you're looking for someone to help you purchase the correct insurance. You treat that relationship like you would your attorney, like you would your CPA, just a part of your team. You need to spend time running your business. Let the folks at Highland Insurance Group handle your commercial insurance. Highland Insurance Group, check them out online, highlandig.com, highlandig.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our number one product is always customer satisfaction. Visit us online at reliefwindows.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
BRAC teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. BRAC, your #1 park system in the nation.
The best kept secret.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Monday's AFR, presented by Relief Windows. LSU opens up the final week of fall camp. We'll have a Saturday camp report, and we'll recap Saints-Niners in preseason game number 2. 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Tune in Friday night for the 3rd and final edition of the SEC Radio Network's Battle for Atlanta. It's a full preview of all 16 SEC football teams as they prepare for the 2024 season. Friday night at 8 p.m. on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. We've also got the college football pick'em contest starting up. Get ready to make your picks for this year's college football season. Pre-register now at 1045ESPN.com. Weekly winners We entered to win a 2-night stay at Beau Rivage, and the first-place season-long champion will get a 75-inch 4K TV and a soundbar. It's the 2024 Twin Peaks College Football Pick'em.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
It's technically week 0. Week 0 is here. They're playing college football on Saturday. There's kickoff in Ireland, I believe. I don't even know who's playing in week 0.
Yeah, I think Florida State,
Georgia Tech, and I think that's kind of it for the high-profile stuff. But because it's week 0, it's time to get into our weekly routine, kind of the guests that we have each and every week. And one of those, Denton Day, host of College Football Overtime on Sirius XM, is also a host and producer at 106.7 The Fan in the capital city. He joins us now, like you will every single Monday at 2:30. Denton, how we doing?
Hunt, it was great to get the bat signal today because with the bat signal means that college football is finally back. It has been such a long off season. We made it through the dog days of summer, and I cannot wait.
Let's talk NFL before college after that intro, because I know that you're up there in D.C., and the Washington Commanders have a new quarterback. We're familiar with him down here. They just named Jayden Daniels the starting quarterback for Week 1. I don't think that came as a surprise to anybody, but what's the buzz around the nation's capital with Jayden Daniels?
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels a little cultish, and just let me explain what I mean by that, because nobody says anything bad about him. And I love him. You know that. I mean, you and I were talking about him, at like the midpoint last season as a viable NFL quarterback. And every bit of hype that he has come into D.C. with, he has exceeded. And as I mentioned, everybody says great things about him. And it's to the point now where, like, every time I hear him talk, Hunt, because he spoke today after being named the starter, every time I hear him talk, I want to take a bullet for him even more. I mean, I'm 29 years old. The team that I root for in the NFL has been trash for all 29 of those years, and it finally feels like the savior has come, and that the team that I root for on Sundays is actually going to make me enjoy living instead of want to throw myself through a window every Sunday.
The question is, as he grows up, what's around him right now? Is that roster good enough to compete in the NFC East, or there's still some significant work to do?
Yeah, there's definitely some work to do. The offensive line is at best okay. I think okay is a little bit below average. So, like, if we're on the grading scale, they're okay. They're not even quite average, so they need a little bit of work there. And then a wide receiver, like Terry McLaurin is a really good wide receiver, but you have to get him help on the other side. And the thought was that Jahan Dotson out of Penn State a couple years ago was going to be the guy that was the clear number 2. But as we sit here now, Dan Quinn has emphasized there's a lot more of a competition than we initially had anticipated. And De'Ami Brown, who played his college ball, ironically, with their quarterback last year, Sam Howell at UNC, he's really stepped up, but I don't know that he's a legit viable number 2 wide receiver. So as good as Jayden is, and he is good, he's going to need a little bit of help on the outside. It can't just be the him and Terry McLaurin show.
I am very excited to watch Jayden get things rolling here in his first year in the NFL. Actually make a trip down to New Orleans this year to play the Saints later on in the season. So we'll talk about him as the season progresses, I'm certain. But let's switch things over to college. Do you subscribe to the Ohio State and Georgia are better than everybody this year? Is that something is that a take you're willing to support?
Right now, sure, but in 2 weeks I'll probably change my mind. That's kind of where I'm at with that. I understand why people want to jump on the Georgia and Ohio State bandwagon now. I don't think, by the way, that what Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel have done are helping Ryan Day. I think it hurts him way more than they're helping him, saying that, this is the most talented team that Ohio State has ever had. I do think there might be a little bit of truth in that, but the quarterback situation with Will Howard, I think he's better than Kyle McCord was last year, but I don't think he's nearly what C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields, and some of the other guys that Ryan Day has had is. So I think right now, at least on paper, they are better than everybody else, but I don't know that we'll feel the same way in 2 or 3 weeks once the games actually start.
What do you make of Michigan? Lose a lot, including their head coach. Are they going to stay among the elite of college football, or are you expecting a bit of a slide back to reality for the Wolverines?
There'll definitely be a slide back to reality. I still think there's the potential they finish the season ranked. Everybody likes to have that conversation, which team in the top 10 is going to completely fall from the ranking. I don't know that they'll be that, but they're definitely not going to be the elite of college football like they were last year. It's just, that's what happens when you have so many guys on a roster last year that were so good they move on to the NFL. Then on top of that, you not only lose the head coach, but he takes like 90% of the defensive staff with him to the NFL. And yeah, I think Sherrone Moore's a really good coach, but that's an uphill battle if there ever was one in college football. So it's very, very fair, I think, to suggest they are not going to make the college football playoff. They're not going to be viewed as an elite team this year, but I do still think they finish the season ranked and end up in a pretty decent bowl game.
How do you feel about Alabama then? Kind of the same boat.
I'm a lot higher on Alabama than most others because I really like Jalen Milroe. And I really like Kalen DeBoer. You know, Jalen Milroe at 14-1 at certain books across the nation is my Heisman pick, Hunt. I think what Kalen DeBoer is going to end up doing with him, you'll start to see a maximization of the things he did really well last year. And I think that excites me maybe more than anything with Alabama specifically. I don't think they're going to go 10-2, 11-1. Their schedule is far too difficult for that. But I do think you'll see a much more confident and much better version of Jalen Milroe this year. So I'm really excited to see what Kalen DeBoer can do with him.
Can Ole Miss win the SEC?
No. I'm not on the Ole Miss hype train at all. I really like Lane Kiffin on Twitter. I don't know that I love him in big games. They are not winning the SEC.
So what do you expect from Ole Miss this year? I mean, it feels like 10-2 to a lot of people. I mean, they certainly play Georgia, and that's going to be a real challenge. They've got to come to Baton Rouge and play here at night in Tiger Stadium. But I mean, those are probably the two most difficult games on the schedule.
And that's what scares me because those are the two most difficult games on the schedule. Yet I'm sitting here thinking there might be another loss on there somewhere. And I don't know if that's going to be like specific to Lane Kiffin and putting the blame on him, or if it's going to be one that slips through their fingers or something. But it feels like there's always one game on that schedule that they're going to let slide where they shouldn't. I think they end up in the college football playoff because honestly, anything other than that seems like it's a failure. Now that there's 12 teams in, Lane really was able to kind of slide by for a long time, being the funny guy on Twitter, but everyone kind of knowing, all right, you're not going to beat Alabama or LSU or whoever, whichever the big game on the schedule is, you're not going to beat them, but you'll play them kind of tough or something. And there's only 4 teams that can get in the college football playoff anyway, so we'll just let you slide and be funny on Twitter. I don't think he has that luxury anymore. Now that there are 12 teams, Ole Miss, given what they bring back, especially with Jackson Dart, they should make the college football playoff. So anything outside of that is a failure, but I'm a little worried about them. I think people are giving them I think they're tickling their fancy a little bit too much this offseason.
We'll talk a little bit more specifically in 2 weeks, LSU and USC, but like big picture, USC, Caleb Williams gone, going into the Big Ten. Like, what do you feel about that program and kind of where they sit in the college football landscape over the next 3 years or so?
We're going to learn a lot about Lincoln Riley. People anointed Lincoln Riley as an elite head coach in college football for his days at Oklahoma because he did a really good job with quarterbacks, and he earned the quarterback whisperer title. I don't know that he earned an elite head coach title, but he earned the title of quarterback whisperer. But now that you're going into the Big Ten Conference, which prides itself on physicality, and we've watched Lincoln Riley for all of his time at USC and even going back to certain years at Oklahoma, not be able to tackle because they don't practice tackling. I hope that mindset changed this offseason. I hope they go into this new conference understanding that they're going to have to be physical. I just don't know if that's going to be the case. And when you don't have a sure thing at quarterback, while I trust Lincoln Riley's ability to make somebody really good, I don't know how I feel about the rest of the roster. I'm actually I'm pretty down on USC. I bet they're under this year at 7.5. I couldn't believe the number was that low, but I had to ride with it. I think they're going to be in for a little bit of a rude awakening in the Big Ten.
Yeah, that was my next kind of follow-up there. Is like, what do you think about USC in the Big Ten, like I said, over the next 5-10 years? I mean, is this going to be a positive for them? It's financially a positive, but you used to be kind of the toast of one side of the country. Now you jump into a pool with Michigan and Ohio State. And, oh, by the way, Oregon's kind of taking their shine over there. Like, do we think that they're in for a bit of a rude awakening?
They will be in the first year or two. Ultimately, positively, this will be a positive experience over the 5-10 year span, if you will. Once they get used to what the Big Ten is, and I'm sure in 5 years the Big Ten is going to look way different than it does right now, just based off of the way things have gone recently. But once they kind of adjust to what is necessary to compete in this conference, they will get the hang of it. I just look at them with Washington, Oregon, and UCLA, and I look at USC as the team that might have the hardest adjustment period, given what their expectations are.
We shall see. You got a national championship lean. I won't hold you to it, but do you have a lean as we sit here in the middle of August?
The lean right now is Oregon, but I really, Dan Lanning is kind of similar to Lane Kiffin, where I love him, but I'd really like to see him beat somebody good in an impressive fashion. I mean, I fell for them twice last year against Washington, but as of right now, I would say they are the lean. But if you ask me in 10 minutes, that'll change.
Well, I'll ask you in a week. How's that? We'll see how things go in a week. Denton, great to have you back, man. We appreciate it. Let's talk next week.
I appreciate it, man. Be well.
He's Denton Day. Follow him on Twitter at @TheDentonDay. Host of College Football Overtime on SiriusXM. Host and producer at 106.7 The Fan in D.C. We're going to talk some Jaden Daniels with him a lot of weeks as well, because I think that's an interesting story to watch. I'm pumped to have Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels both playing significant snaps for in the NFL on Sunday. I think that's going to be an interesting thing, and we'll talk a lot of college football with Denton, but we'll also dip our toe into the Commanders talk with him as well. As he says, he's been on this planet for 29 years, and his NFL team stunk for all 29. So we'll see if Jaden can change that in some pretty short order. We got one segment to go. We'll come back after this.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services, boudreauxelectrical.com. Neil and Melissa have been running Boudreaux's Electrical for 40 years. Every single Generac home standby generator that you purchase from Boudreaux's Electrical comes with a 7 to 10-year warranty, depending on the type of generator that you get. Give yourself the peace of mind to know that you're not going to have to deal with power outages. We understand that hurricanes happen in this part of the world. We also understand that sometimes those summer showers that come through can get nasty and can knock the power out for hours or days. That's just a complete nuisance. Eliminate it. Boudreaux's Electrical can do that. You're never going to hear me talk about a VIP membership with Boudreaux's Electrical, because every client at Boudreaux's Electrical is treated like a VIP. That's just part of the experience of being a Boudreaux's Electrical client. You can call them 985-397-1562 or 225-300-9389. Again, those two numbers, 985-397-1562 or in the 225 area code 300-9389. Check them out online. It's Boudreaux's Electrical at boudreauxelectrical.com.
Get the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge app powered by Bayou Ford and tap the microphone icon to send us your thoughts in an audio message. Your message could be played on air during Off the Bench with Esther and T-Bob, The Hunt Palmer Show, and after further review with Matt Moscone.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
It's an everyday thing here. We work horses in the mornings and we work on the property during the day, and without these John Deere tractors, it'd almost be impossible to keep up with the place. I've dealt with some of the other colors and stuff, and I never really got the response back that I get from John Deere, We really enjoy dealing with Sunshine. They're good people. They always check on us and make sure our equipment's running, and we love them. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way.
On Tuesdays, OTB, we start to look forward to what you need to see out of your New Orleans Saints heading to the final preseason game. Plus, the Tigers continue to march to Vegas, and college football is officially set to return. Off the bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
Rev delivers our coverage live from Las Vegas starting Friday, August 30th with Off the Bench and After Further Review, and continuing Sunday, September 1st with Eagle 98.1 Game Day. Our coverage is also presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Watch us live on the 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel. Call the 2024 LSU football season live from Las Vegas with Rev 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Plucker's Wing Bar.
We're reminding you daily to check out LouisianaSports.net. We launched at the end of last week and had a lot of content that's up there. If this sounds like something that might be interesting to you, invite you to head over to LouisianaSports.net. There's a Harlem Berry Q&A from his segment on Matt's show After Further Review. Got a station survey up where everybody from the station put their most indispensable player on LSU's roster. I've got a piece on the defensive tackle room at LSU, plus all the coverage from last night's Saints game, standouts, injury reports, all kinds of things there. Got a story up on the commitment that LSU got from Cade Phillips over the weekend. Also got Chris Marler with top 5 SEC games that are going to shape the season. Got some newsers up there as well. So if you want to read about SEC sports, Saints football, LSU sports, got a Trey Morgan story up there as well. It's all free, no paywall, anywhere to be seen. And we'll keep churning out content every single day over at LouisianaSports.net. Bookmark it and go ahead and check it out. We're real proud of it, and we're excited to move forward with LouisianaSports.net, our print venture here at Guarantee Media. All right, Beck, take it or leave it.
All right, first one here. Luis Yepes. You've never probably heard of that name before. But he is a pitcher for Venezuela's Little League World Series team. Okay. And in their game a few days ago against Mexico, he got a strike 3 call on a pitch fastball that he threw that was 80 miles per hour. That would be the equivalent of 104 from an MLB mound. Little leaguers throwing 104. Take it or leave it.
I mean, I'm going to take it. Can we get a birth certificate on this guy? It's just Danny Almonte situation. He was like 17, played in the Little League World Series.
Yeah.
That's tough to deal with. 80 miles an hour at 12 years old. That's humans are evolving, as they say.
Yeah, apparently.
I mean, there's kids that can't hit that. That's
there's no chance. There's no chance. I mean, you probably couldn't hit that.
No. Absolutely not. I could barely hit 80 in high school. So, that's that guy. Whatever he's in Venezuela, I'll take them to win the whole thing if he's throwing 80.
Yeah, I think so. All right, last one here, short edition here. Hideki Matsuyama. We talked about him last week. He got robbed in London.
Yeah.
His caddy and swing coach both had their passports taken away, and so they could not make the tournament. But all Hideki did was shoot 65, 64, 64 in the first 3 rounds. And then on Sunday, he had a pretty solid lead. He was kind of just coasting. And then he double bogeyed on 15. So then he was actually tied for first with Xander Schauffele and Victor Hovland. And then all he did was birdie 17 and 18 to win the tournament by 2 strokes. Take it or leave it.
Look, I'm going to take it. It was great playing. I think that, if you're the caddy and the swing coach, you're like, he can just do this without us. You're Hideki. But, if you're the reserve caddy, you're filled in.
Extremely happy.
And you're catching 10% of that winner's check,
which was $3.6 million.
That's $360K for 4 days of work. We like that. That's
Absolutely.
the gig you want to get. Matsuyama, I cannot believe he goes out there and shoots mid-60s 3 days in a row and then changes putters.
Yeah.
I have the same putter I had in 8th grade. Literally. It's like the paint's all chipped off. It's an Odyssey 2-ball putter that my dad won in some charity scramble when I was in 8th grade. He didn't want it. He gave it to me. I still putt with it. 8th grade for me was 2002. So my putter is 22 years old. Matsuyama, who said, by the way, that he has 100 different putters at his house. That's a little bit too much tinkering. I've got the one. I actually won a putter in a charity scramble in Lake Tahoe, and I took it to the putting green and hit 2 putts with it and gave it away. It's like,
wow.
I'm not going to.
You don't need it. You got the trusty old 2-ball.
2-ball that's
all
22
you need.
years old. That is all we need. All right, that's it for Take It or Leave It here on this Monday. We're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com. Shout out to Trey Beal and the gang at Gulf Coast Office Products. Printing, copying, scanning, they've got you covered. If you've never given any thought to why you have the printer, scanner, copier that you have, maybe it's time to do that. Trey Beal and his team have clients in every single vertical industry, every single market. So if there's something that you need, they'll know about it, and they can get you what you need. They've got incredible resources statewide here in the state of Louisiana. They're a fantastic locally owned company right here in Baton Rouge. Gulf Coast Office Products, GCOPnet.com is where you can find them. They bring you our Monday shows each and every week. Open the show today talking a little bit of LSU football as the Tigers get a defensive back commitment flip from Texas. Everybody calm down. It's fine. Everybody calm down. LSU can recruit defensive backs. Corey Raymond can recruit defensive backs. And they've got a nice pair of corners in this class already. Catherine Terrell joined us. She's covering the Saints for ESPN. She was with us at 1:15. You can find that interview at Hunt on Saints. SEC quarterback tiers. Where does Garrett Nussmeier slot? In my opinion, I told you at 1:30. And Trey Morgan called up to Double-A by the Tampa Bay Rays organization. He'll be a Montgomery Biscuit, one of the best minor league hats in the game. Big stuff for Trey, so that's cool. We talked about that at the end of hour number 1. My take on the Saints preseason win at the top of hour number 2, some Brian Kelly audio, specifically about the offensive line, and then Denton Day talking some national college football. All that is wherever you find your sound on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Wherever you find it, that's where you can find it. Tomorrow, we're going to have Glenn West and Sharif Ishak talking Saints and LSU. Have a wonderful and safe Monday. We're back tomorrow, same time, same place. Matt's about to drive you home on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show.
What do we have? Evolve Physical Therapy, EvolvePT.com is the website. If you're just dealing with some pain, whether you were in an injury, had an injury or a car accident, let the folks at Evolve Physical Therapy help you. If you've had a bad physical therapy experience where you were given a list of exercises to go do at home and we'll see you next week, that's not rehabilitation. You need to go see the folks at Evolve Physical Therapy. Robbie Bolton has been doing this for 20 years. Fantastic locally owned company here, Evolve Physical Therapy. EvolvePT.com is where you can find them online. You can also find them on Starring near Highland Road. And you just get back to being your active self. If you're dealing with aches and pains and you want to be taken care of and get back to being your active self, no matter your age, Robbie Bolton and his team at Evolve Physical Therapy can help you. It's Evolve Physical Therapy in Sports, EvolvePT.com, EvolvePT.com.
Elevate brand visibility, ignite customer engagement with the power of radio and digital advertising combined. Guarantee Digital Media brings the two together as a trusted media partner in Louisiana for nearly a century. Claim your free digital audit at GuaranteeMedia.com.
Jerry and Benny Payne